You know that house right there with the white car and the gray car is? You know Cody? Oh, he's a very sweet guy.
This is the kind of video that will make your heart sink. Police say this woman approached two children playing outside their home. She didn't know these kids, and this is really scary, she allegedly tried to coax them to a stranger's house, the house of a sex offender. And the suspect doesn't seem upset that she was arrested. Just take a look at this big smile in her mugshot. We dove into her history, and it's not the first time she's been in trouble with the law. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. What is alleged in this case? It's the kind of stuff that you would hope would only be used as an extreme example in some sort of after-school PSA about knowing where your kids are. But what we're talking about here in this story out of Arkansas, it is all very real. Take a look at this surveillance video captured by a mom in Arkansas outside her house. It is very real. It is very scary. So I want to play this video for you right now, and then we'll talk about what happened right after.
Come outside. You know that house right there with the white car and the gray car is? You know Cody? Oh, he's a very sweet guy. Would you go tell him to come outside? Tell your mom wants to talk to him. He wants to have you.
Now what you saw there is a woman approaching two children playing in that yard. The children's mom says she has no idea who this woman is. She's never seen her before. She doesn't know her personally. And to make things even more scary, this woman is approaching these two children and she's trying to get the kids to go to someone else's house. And on top of that, police say the house that she was trying to get those kids to go to, the person, you hear her say something along the lines of like, oh, he's a really nice guy. She's talking about a sex offender who lives nearby. Now, after the children's mom saw this on the surveillance camera, she posted the video to her Facebook page. She says, quote, "Anyone know her from Trumann? My kids were outside playing and she decided that she wanted to approach my kids, telling them to go to a sex offender's house, saying, quote, their mama wanted them to go over there. If I find her, I'm gonna crash TF out." Now, this story was shared by hundreds of people who also tagged police in Trumann, Arkansas, and they started investigating and they arrested 49-year-old Tracy Washburn. And just take a look at her mugshot. It is frankly bizarre. She is just smiling at the camera after she was arrested on stalking charges, according to police. And then, according to her online booking profile, Washburn is charged with public intoxication, breaking or entering a vehicle, theft of property, tampering with physical evidence, and third-degree battery. I have put in a request for more information from police related to the case and the charges that Washburn is facing. Now, we have learned that this is not the first time that this suspect has been allegedly in trouble with the law for alleged alcohol-related offenses. Last year, Tracy Washburn pleaded guilty to public intoxication. This is the case listed in Arkansas court records. Then in March of this year, she was found guilty on 2 counts of theft of property. She was given a 12-month suspended sentence and was given a fine of $690. That is also according to online court records. Now, the story of Washburn allegedly approaching these children, it's taking place in the community of Trumann, Arkansas. This is a place that's less than an hour away from Memphis, Tennessee, and it's less than 2 hours from the state line with Missouri, which is just to its north. Now, I looked up Washburn in court records in Missouri and found that in 2007, a woman named Tracy Washburn, same age, same spelling, same middle initial, from Trumann, Arkansas, entered a guilty plea to involuntary manslaughter while being intoxicated. She was sentenced to 6 years in prison.
You know that house right there with the white car and the gray car is? You know Cody? Oh, he's a very sweet guy.
So even after all of those issues with the law and allegedly alcohol, here is Washburn allegedly again in front of a stranger's house this time, allegedly trying to coax her children to the home of a sex offender. Now, it's unclear who that sex offender is. Police have not named that person. Washburn does appear to be the only person facing charges related to this incident at this point. Now, the children's mom, who posted this video of the incident, said that Washburn is now banned from her neighborhood and there's a no contact order in place between her, the mom, and her kids. Hey, before we get back to this episode of On the Case, I need to take a moment and talk about our partner and sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. This is America's largest injury law firm with more than 1,000 attorneys, and they win a lot. They've recovered over $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. And in the past few months, a client in Florida received $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million. That is 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. Another client in Pennsylvania received $29 million after being offered only $500,000. Now, even if you don't think your case is worth millions of dollars, why not fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it so easy to start a claim. You can do it with just 8 clicks on your phone. So if you have been injured and you need to start a claim, go to www.forthepeople.com/OTC. You can also scan this QR code on your screen or click the link below. Joining us now is retired NYPD Detective David Sarney. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. I just want to start with this video. And thankfully for the mom in this case, she had, a camera outside observing her kids. But it just seems, it's almost as if it was like a PSA. It's just so outrageous that this would happen. And she's innocent until proven guilty. All of this is alleged. But from what we see in this video, what do you take away from it?
Yeah, it's chilling for the fact the way she just approaches these kids. Like, was she watching them beforehand? Did she just happenstance drive by and see the kids there? It's mind-boggling that someone would actually approach these kids and actually engage in them and tell them to go to this guy's house. And it's okay, your mom said so. It is kind of like a PSA. The mom did the greatest thing in the world by teaching these kids stranger danger. Because once it happened, they immediately told her mom. And then she looked at the video and saw that and then called the police. And then the wheels started moving and they arrested her for that.
Well, and that's the thing, is like you think of like a PSA as always a little bit more extreme than reality. And you would never think that like a predator actually shows up, and we'll see what her relationship is to this sex offender. And if he was involved in any way, I don't think there's any evidence of that at this point. But it's interesting in the alert that police put out before we dive into Tracy Washburn, the suspect, that they put specifically, even after her arrest, hey, she drives a Kia. And this specific car. Why did police do that?
Well, they want to see if she's been involved in is there any other incident that have happened that have not been reported. Because a lot of times when these situations happen, nobody says anything. Was this car near a school? Did this happen before with any other parent that they didn't realize it? And it's also they could talk to their kids and say, did anyone in a car approach you, a woman approach you? And they could ask them, what did she approach you in? So car, what kind of car, what color? So you don't want to lead the kids to these questions, but you want them to tell you. So people who have not made reports about this incident with her involved, who have seen that car in places that kids, congregate, parks, schools, anywhere. So that's a benefit. It's a positive thing to do, because I think the police did a really good job in once the apprehension, and they put the alert out. And they put the alert out immediately too. Anytime when you have these type of incidents, you want to make sure people are you put a bolo out, be on the lookout for, and that's because this will not stop until she grabs somebody. That's the reality of that. So you move kind of fast on these type of incidents. You really do.
And I think too, so she is also she's facing these stalking charges for what you see play out on camera, but also apparently she was drunk. She's facing a public intoxication charge. And when you look into her criminal history, this is a woman who has a serious issue with alcohol. And it's one of those questions I think we often ask when you see someone with a lengthy rap sheet of like, at what point, and I understand that alcoholism, it's a serious issue and people really struggle with it. And there's a whole lot of other stuff that could be going on with this. But like from a legal perspective, if you're the police and you have this person that, now has a restraining order against them and they've been having this like long pattern with alcohol, like what is the solution to stop this person from causing trouble?
Well, that comes part of the criminal justice system that the police can only do. We can make arrests, make apprehensions, arrests. If that comes into the prosecutor's office, becomes to the courts, let them make a decision on how to deal with her consistent predicate abuse of alcohol. That's something that she has to make a decision on. We've seen this before. Alcoholism is the disease. She's not trying to fix the disease, and the courts have to either mandate it, make it a compulsory thing to go into rehab. But the rehab will only catch if the person wants to be rehabilitated. I've unfortunately worked with drug abusers and alcoholics in the past, and they don't want to get help. A guy was like, his biggest concern when he went to jail was, I see my girlfriend. because I'm worried about having sex. That was his concern. Not going to jail, not getting rehab, but worrying about being incarcerated so he can't have what he wants to have. And this is the thing about alcohols. And I've dealt with alcoholics. Some of them are so severe that they do get arrested. They may have to be hospitalized because there's such a severe alcohol abuse problem. And with this person, she's been arrested numerous times. The court systems haven't stopped her from doing it. And the reality is the only one who can stop it, you can compulsory make it a mandatory thing in rehab. But if she doesn't catch on, it doesn't make a difference. And this is the problem we have with these people who are abusing either substances or alcohol.
Right, and you have to wonder too. I mean, there is obviously a pattern of alcoholism in her past, just based off of the records we've been able to find. But then at the same time, it's like, how do you get to a point where I don't know if you can blame the alcohol for going up to children and then trying to get them to go to a sex offender's house, where it just seems like that. Yes, she's facing a public intoxication charge, but how do you as law enforcement go into figuring out exactly how you get to the point where she's trying to get these young kids to go to a sex offender's house?
Yeah, well, the alcohol is not an excuse. The reality is she could be drunk off her mind. It's not an excuse for her actions. And that's the whole thing. When I presume when the officers arrested her and the detective spoke to her, they probably interrogated her and asked her a lot of questions. But now we have to deal with if she's in an intoxicated state. Can you speak to her? Because if she's intoxicated, you really can't get real answers from her. So you have to wait till she gets kind of sober again, and then maybe re-interview her again, interrogate her. But that's what you want to do. You want to find out the why, because was she? And this is something I was an investigator would be asking. Have you gone by that house before? And that's another thing I would talk to the mom. Did you ever see that car around before? And that's important, because was this a happenstance moment where the kids were just outside, or was she stalking these kids and this car was driven by a few times? Because she approaches these kids and is very relaxed in her way of talking. She doesn't sound intoxicated. She sounds like she's really clear, coherent enough to suggest to these kids, go to this house, but your mom says it's okay. And the kids did the greatest thing in the world. They said, we're not going. They just did their thing and went to mom. So that's a great aspect to it. But when it comes to the perpetrator themselves, that's where you have to really do a little background on it. Where was that call before? Had she done this before? And were these kids targeted as part of this whole plot to bring to this guy's house? And the question is, does this sex offender even know her? What's the relationship between the two of them? That's another thing that has to come up, because now he's failed to register once before. He's been arrested for it. Is this something now that is going to be a concern for the police department and for the court system now? Because now he's kind of part of it, even though he may not have been a willing partner or even know yet. He's now part of it. So now you have to look at him a little harder too.
Just going back to the video, because it's just the tone of her voice, I think, is the most terrifying part of it, because it doesn't sound like she's, when you think of someone who's inebriated, that's not, it's not like she's slurring her words. And it's just as if a kindergarten teacher would talk to kids to have them come somewhere and it's like, oh, he's a really nice guy, come over here. Like, that is just so chilling. And thankfully the camera picks that up. And what a solid piece of evidence in this case going forward. As far as what we know about this sex offender, and I know there are states like Florida, for example, you type in a sex offender's name into Google and the FDLE page will come right up for a lot of these sex offenders, and you know who they are, where they live. How does that differ from state to state?
It does differ from state to state. I believe he's a registered level 2. He has a chance of reoffending, but as far as his restrictions, they're definitely different than the higher levels of 3 and a 4. So that was the one thing. So he's allowed to live in certain areas. It's not like he has to be banned from church areas or schools. He doesn't have that restriction. His restriction primarily is to make sure he's notified that he's a registered sex offender in that county or wherever he moves to. They have to be registered. And here's the thing. You get arrested for that. It's failing to register. It's a misdemeanor in New York. And what happens is we have people reoffend again. We've had that happen numerous times.
What happens with that? Because I imagine there's not too much information out about the person in this case and whether he's actually involved at all, or if it's just terrible luck that this woman tried to get kids to go to your house. Ultimately for I think of other people in the neighborhood, you would want to know if someone who's convicted, what they were convicted of, how long they've lived there, did it involve children, whatever it may be. Typically, how much does someone, and I know you're in New York and we're talking about a case in Arkansas, but a sex offender moves to your neighborhood and making sure that other people know that they're actually going to be there.
Well, that's the thing. So you have to sort of do your own personal work. I know there's certain applications with the, online that you can actually look, and like there are, not to promote anything, but there's one app that tells you there's a registered sex offender about 0.3 of a mile away, but then purchase the app to use it. But you can actually you can look it up within your neighborhood, within the state and the city. A lot of these cities and a lot of these websites will do it. You just have to really be more proactive in that, and especially with the 2s and the 3s, because they don't really. I mean, especially 1s and 2s, they don't really tell you where they are. You have to really kind of do a little groundwork on it, especially with this person. I mean, I looked, I had to go into his arrest record to find out who this person was, and his arrest was failing to register. So that's a problem automatically. So I'll tell you now, they're going to do a little harder look at him, because if he failed to register once, is he going to do it again? And is there a chance that this offense that the woman is accused of, was he part of that offense? And if he's possibility to register, this is something that may come up later on in anything. Maybe if he's on parole, but he's just pretty much a registered sex offender. Do they have monitoring units that go out to visit them and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do according to whatever restrictions they have on them?
I know that she's facing these stalking charges, but if, let's just say that there's more to the story and this was a premeditated act that she was taking part in, what's the process of, she's already facing these charges, and if your police are still investigating and something happens, and to this point we don't know if she was just drunk and she did this and it was just bad luck with, it happened to be a sex offender's house and maybe she didn't know he was a sex offender. That's all very much possible. But if it's more than that, what happens next?
Well, they could add additional charges. They could rearrest her on whatever, if it's going to be a misdemeanor or a felony, and then she could be charged for that. But it really comes down to, and I always go back to this probable cause, is there enough evidence to show that you can make an arrest? And that's what it comes down to. They had enough on this case with this stalking. Will there be anything predating this incident that would get her arrested? That's what the investigators will look and try to follow up on. But reality is, all you have is what you have now. And unfortunately, when it comes to the police, you're limited into what you can do with these situations until it's a crime that's committed. In this case, stalking, which is what they did, and they were able to develop that based on the evidence they have. And the video is extremely important, because even though you have kids say something, can they identify the person? Sometimes you deal with the swearability of kids. You can tell them that this did it. Are you going to put the kid, show a lineup to these kids? There was ways in which the investigators were able to utilize that video with the audio, and that's another thing. They had audio on that video, which is even better, because then this is now the new world of technology. You can get audio, outdoor audio and video. It's better for you as a person, as a parent, to have that, because your kids may not be able to explain what happened. And this is the other thing. These kids learned that and knew that from their mom. What about other kids who don't know that and would have just abided by what this stranger did? Oh, mom said it's okay, I'll go over there. And that's the thing. It's really crazy about it. She said the mom told her to go there. So she's really trying to push these kids into this guy's house.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, it's like the type of thing where I think often, we've covered enough stories together that, there's not one particular profile for someone who's going to do bad acts. We see people of all different kinds, but in this one, it's literally as if someone wrote a commercial of how to protect your children, and it is a good reminder to everybody who's a parent to have that conversation with their kids. I know that they have now, the mom and the children have a restraining order on this woman. It's very easy to knock restraining orders because often we see them just be a piece of paper, but what does a restraining order actually put into place in a situation like this?
That there can be no contact, personal contact or third-party contact with the complainants, the victims in this case. And that's what they're looking to do. And if there is, they could be arrested for that, a violation of order of protection. Again, misdemeanor. So depending on the state, depending on the punishment that comes into play, if that restraining order is violated, will the courts actually request a remand? In other words, keep that person in custody. I know she has a probable cause hearing, on Wednesday. But, this is one thing. I think she's still in. I believe that. But other states, a restraining order is only good as the person who's supposed to follow it. And we've seen that paper do absolutely nothing at times, which is unfortunate. But if they violate the order of protection, the person needs to be incarcerated pending the next court date. Because if they're following the legal instructions by the courts, and they do it once, they'll do it again. They'll do it 3 or 4 times because they've seen no punishment for it. The benefit is That's the reason why you do it, is you want to make sure if they violate it, you put them back in incarcerated pending the next court date.
And in your career, I mean, just how often do you see stories as brazen as this one when it comes to someone with I keep going back to it. I mean, it's like sometimes when people are like, oh, it's just like a movie, it's cliche. But like in this one, it just seemed so incredibly brazen.
It's somewhat frequent. We've had situations, the benefit of this, you have video and audio. We've had situations where people go up to the street and find these kids by themselves and just kind of snatch them up. I mean, that happens. Trucks go by, cars will go by. The thing is, the actions of the police, the immediate action, response by the police is important. So when that thing happens, you're trying to find that person, because what they're going to do is going to continue to do it until they find that kid that they can disappear with. And that's why the speed of law enforcement on this case is important to stopping a possible tragedy. It's kind of like a missing persons case where, you have to find the missing person, and it's not a crime to be missing, but the reason why they're missing could be criminal. So in this, you want to avoid a missing persons case, because whoever's doing these things, whatever pedophile, what monster is doing this, will continue to do it until they're stopped. And if we've gotten a chance to see them, to get some identifying features, whether a car, a face, whatever, police are going to do and apprehend that person. And then it's up to the courts. We have to build that case. It's up to the courts whether or not they're going to prosecute the case on that individual. And that's really what it comes down to. The police and the prosecutors have to work hand in hand on this. And, we may not know every aspect of the law, but that's why the prosecutors are there to help us, kind of meander through sometimes the system, especially when it comes to these type of cases. Because sometimes they're arrestable offenses. And then sometimes it's kind of like you don't have much. What do you do? And that's why you have to really lean on the prosecutors and the courts to see what we can do sometimes to make that arrest.
Yeah, and the video, I mean, to your point, I mean, I know that, there can be negatives of the times that we live in when it comes to technology, but in this case, I mean, the fact that they have it, the audio is so clean that everybody can hear it, really important in this case, very disturbing case going forward. Retired NYPD Detective David Sarney, it's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you much. Stay safe.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.